Hey everybody, welcome to the Truth and Freedom Ministry channel. I'm back out here on some public land, so if there's any gunfire, just know it's part of the beauty of sharing it with other people. Today, I wanted to talk about a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart. I think it's one that we're dealing with every day on just a very reoccurring level. It's probably something that comes up every week if you have a spouse. It's something you factor in when you want to think about what you can give your kids and the life that they're going to have. And it's a topic about finances and how are you supposed to navigate that when things are tougher economically. I'm not going to pretend that everything's perfect, but I also am not some fortune teller that necessarily knows just how bad things actually are. But I think there's a struggle that's going on and a lot of questions of like, hey, how am I supposed to still be able to manage some semblance of preparedness when there's not a lot of excess funds to be able to spend? How am I supposed to navigate this when I know it's also a lot of fun and it is in some ways a hobby that I get to enjoy? What is overindulgence versus what is being prudent and being a protector? And so this isn't a topic I'm necessarily going to be able to cover by any means in a single video. And this is really a topic of like financial brokenness and financial hardship, let alone like, hey, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to kind of keep going through this route when things are tough mentally or emotionally or spiritually? And I guess I'd say I've had more struggle when it comes to being motivated in a spiritual level because there's been tough things that have gone on in my life. But the finance piece of it, I think, is going to be really interesting for us to dive into, and I hope a lot of people get something very fruitful out of this. I have a not-so-secret suspicion that many Americans, including the ones in the preparedness and firearms community, are in the midst of an economic downturn. It seems like every political administration tries to do its best to avoid admitting any of it, so it's rather difficult to gauge how bad we are at a given moment. But based on the YouTube comments, Instagram Q&A responses, private sale listings on buy-sell trade sites like TaxSwap, apparent industry slump, and gut instinct, it seems like the economy has hit a lot of wallets hard. Some more specific indicators appear to be that firearms trainers are noticing less attendees. Jimmy Rodriguez, who's another YouTuber, did a Q&A on Instagram asking why his followers weren't attending courses as much, and the overwhelming answers were that they didn't have the financial ability to justify the high costs. The rifle parts company Anderson Manufacturing recently went bankrupt. Aero Precision appears to be not far behind them at this current point in 2025. These are both major companies that were absolutely booming with sales during COVID only a few years ago. It's hard for me to say this confidently, but my general instinct tells me that even YouTube viewership on many gun product reviews are down too, which may or may not be actually a bad thing. The general YouTuber response to audiences dealing with financial hardship has always been puzzling. It's super common to see gunfluencer types immediately point fingers at the average Joe, essentially sending the message of, you just make poor financial decisions. Being real, I know that Lucas Botkin did this in a tactical Dave Ramsey way. I understand that sometimes they do it to try to dissuade you from buying stuff you don't need, which can be a good thing. But to be honest, I think that a lot of gunfluencers, YouTubers, and industry reps try to rationalize the average American population as financially illiterate and unwise, because then they can more easily justify all the stuff that they own in comparison to you. It's not because they're a paid shill, brand rep getting merchandise for free, or receiving heavy industry discounts. It's actually because they're just financially sound, unlike you. It's much easier to rationalize a vast gap of owning dual tubes, every flavor of firearm, and the latest thermal clip-on when you've already justified that anyone could own this stuff if they just stopped drinking beer and ordering Uber Eats every Friday night. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to make any assumptions about your personal financial situation and what you can or could have done differently. Hell, I don't even know if you're in a season of prosperity or teetering on homelessness. I will say straight up that I'm a man of the people, similar to you. I started this channel because I felt called to share some of my experiences, hoping I can positively impact viewers and point them towards Jesus Christ and truth. I do not come from wealth. I've never worked in the firearms industry. Starting from scratch, I've had to be strategic, wise, and purchase everything I own in this preparedness space. That money I've earned and my wife has been amazingly supportive in. The purpose of this video is purely going to be how to maximize your ability to train and prepare while you're broke. It would be a missed opportunity if I didn't first address the very reasonable question many of you might have. Why should I even keep training when I'm broke and I'm in some of the worst times of my entire life? It's truly an amazing and worthwhile question. On the surface, the obvious answer is, I'm done. Fun time is over. This is just a hobby, like golf. Now that I don't have any money, I need to hang my hat, call it a day, and just feed my family. But honestly, you should ask yourself, am I no longer able to train and prepare, or am I just no longer able to engage in a hobby of buying, collecting, and fantasizing? When you're broke and limited on disposable income, yes, you're correct. The time of impulse buying, collecting, and analyzing the pros and cons of all the industry options should be put on pause. It'd be careless to keep doing that if it means you're sacrificing on essentials, falling behind on your rent or mortgage, or accumulating unnecessary credit card debt. But I would wager to guess, many of you have accumulated quite a bit of equipment over the years. If you're older, you may have gotten into firearms, hunting, or general preparedness decades ago. For others, and I suspect many watching, you might have a few years under your belt after starting this journey sometime during COVID. Speaking for myself, when I was in my 20s, COVID had just started. I was younger with less financial obligations and no mortgage. Because of this, I was able to buy certain pieces of kit that I would otherwise not be able to now. I suspect this might be the same for many of you watching because of those COVID stimulus checks, company bonuses, or people that got into this space before getting married and having kids. So let's assume that things have changed on your end. In the best case scenario, the reason you're broke is not because you're without a job, but because you've taken on more responsibilities like trying to be a husband, father, homeowner, or tackle debt. In the worst case scenario, things haven't gone your way for you and your family. You're struggling, not sure where the next paycheck is going to come from, and the prospect of having any fun or purpose outside of sheer survival feels like a cruel joke to you. I can't say I've personally experienced the hardship of the latter camp, but I can tell you I'm limited in my financial resources because my wife and I have had to focus on financial obligations and opportunities. I can say I deeply empathize with the suffering camp of folks watching, and I'll be praying for you in this season of hardship that it's not in vain and it'll pass in time. So getting back to the why should I even train? In my honest opinion, the primary reason you should keep going is because you're a man who is put on this earth to help others, protect when you can, and continue to grow, especially during seasons of hardship. I can also speak that as an American, this is part of our heritage. We are a nation of riflemen. Is that supposed to just stop because things get hard? Did we let that stop us during any other point in history over the past 250 years? Piggybacking on that idea, many people in this space say they prepare for hard times. Training while broke is a genuine opportunity to lean into a difficult time. I'm sorry to break this to you, but most real-life suffering is not glamorous. It doesn't involve a 750-yard shot, CQP raids with the boys, maritime-based operations, or choosing to load out for a mission that ends before dinner time. Real-life suffering is way more likely to involve financial hardships, really bad medical news, or loss of a loved one. I would personally take the financial hardship over the other two. In this season of life, you'll need to find outlets for your body, mind, and soul. Our true domains of control in life are actually very narrow. Being broke only further illustrates that hard truth even more. One of the few things we can actually do during this type of season is train. In many ways, this is one of the exact scenarios you've been preparing for. Shit may have metaphorically hit the fan, it's just not in the Red Dawn type of way you expected it. Training might take some modification, sacrifice, and adjustments, but I assure you that it's possible. I'll go through some helpful tips that might make life easier for you if you ever encounter a season like this in the future. This is the very first step I think you should pursue and prioritize. You really need to itemize and inventory what you actually have on hand. You might find that you have more things than you realized. There might be some things you forgot you purchased. In some ways, this might be a humbling experience because you'll likely find several things that you wasted money on or realized wasn't important in the grand scheme of things. While you're at it, it's probably a good idea to take a look at the market and determine on a general level how much is your stuff worth. Everything you own will be considered used most likely, so I'd refer to buy-sell trade sites like TaxSwap, ARFCom, or your local state classifieds. This is going to come in handy for a few reasons. 1. There's a morale boost of knowing you have additional funds should things get really desperate. 2. There may be things that you want to sell because you know for a fact you don't need them or you've outgrown them. The next step I would encourage is for you to take inventory of all the other hobbies you have an interest in and collected. If I'm being real, men in these types of spaces don't just generally have one expensive hobby, they have multiples. The odds are that in addition to firearms and preparedness, you're likely into one or more of the following: golf, archery, jiu-jitsu, off-roading, fishing, sports gambling, motorcycles, watch collecting, knife collecting, surfing, Funko Pops, or boating. I'll put the last two in the same camp. If there's ever a time to cut a hobby or two, I would say being broke is a good one. This doesn't mean you have to swear off a given hobby for the rest of your life. It just might mean that if you have previously been able to golf and had a jiu-jitsu gym membership, you might want to cancel the expensive membership and cut out the luxury hobby. For others, it might just mean objectively identifying all the investments you've made in these other hobbies. Selling items from those hobbies can become sources of funding as needed. This is an area where I'll fully admit my own bias. I've made firearms and preparedness a primary hobby, and any other existing hobbies I have really don't cost that much. I love to go to the gym, which is about $30 a month. I love to hike and camp as well. Those are almost peripherally tied to preparedness, and generally once you have a baseline equipment in those, the activities don't cost much either. So given that I'm obsessed with this enough to start a channel dedicated to it, I'm not going to be the guy that tells you should prioritize golf or any of these other hobbies I outlined. I think golf is lame, as is any other hobby where you can get away with drinking alcohol at the same time. I wish more men prioritize preparedness and training because it allows you to invest in yourself instead of pacify your needs. This ties back into the first 2 points. You're most likely not going to get through tough economic times without having to sell a few of your own luxury items. By inventorying what you own, whether it's in the firearm space or other first world luxuries, you effectively have a list of items that you can liquidate and help pay the bills if you're not finding that light at the end of the tunnel while broke. In a perfect world, during a personal downturn, we're finding the balance by spending just enough to keep our families afloat without having to sell personal items. But if we reach a point where we are consistently seeing lack of funds and credit card usage starts to rise, that's an indicator you probably should start selling off some of your treasures that you care about the least. Because I hate golf, maybe it just means you sell off the golf clubs first. Or maybe there's a project vehicle that's been sitting in your garage unfinished for 2 years. Another enthusiast might value it, and you can get ahead substantially by letting it go. If you're the type of firearms collector that owns 13 PSA rifles, 7 handguns, and 3 shotguns, you're the perfect candidate to sell off a few of those. Most likely, you are not going to be equipping your entire neighborhood block in the future. If you've neglected other aspects of your gear, like higher quality optics, a red dot for your personal handgun, or even just a decent supply of ammo, you can sell some of the unused guns to fund what you need. The basis for this next point is to steer you towards action and training where you can actually utilize all the equipment you already own. I know that training is not free, but it is certainly cheaper than what many of us do during economic stability, which is go online, buy, collect, and upgrade our gear over and over again. There's no singular approach to training, so it's a flexible path that you can throttle or scale back as needed. I specifically say you should identify a competition event because you will naturally create a more structured approach and have a specific goal in mind. Also, nobody wants to go to a competition and get last place, so there's going to be more internal motivation to actually train and prepare versus just mindlessly dicking off at the range and pretending it's training. I think for many people, the Tactical Games is a fantastic event series that doesn't require an unrealistic level of gear. When I volunteered for that event, I noticed that outside the elite divisions, the people that maxed out their equipment often did worse than the people that just showed up with what they had and were better conditioned. For this type of event, all you need is a reliable AR-15, magnified optic, handgun with a holster, plate carrier with minimum weight, and a reasonable amount of ammo for both systems. I honestly think that most people watching this, you already have many of those things, if not more. That has sort of become the baseline that most people have purchased within Gun Culture 3.0. I love long-range precision, so I'd be remiss not to mention the NRL Hunter Competition Series. I can also throw in the Mammoth Sniper Challenge and any other DMR match. These are phenomenal choices if you already own the equipment. Otherwise, they may not be the best for you because they lean into a very high cost of entry. There are minimum standards of gear, and it's in the thousands of dollars. It involves buying more niche items like chronographs, range-finding binoculars, kestrels, and expensive optic systems. If you're already bought in, I think this would be a great series to pursue because you can train without having to shoot high volumes of rounds downrange. There's other competition series that I can't speak to because I haven't attended them, but USPSA, 2-Gun, 3-Gun, IDPA, or even Project Appleseed are all outlets to consider and would be good choices. So one thing I didn't mention that I wanted to touch base on here is there's going to be a question of, hey, I can't really justify spending $300 on one of those yearly or regional bigger events that's a multi-day event. Think of like the Tactical Games, NRL Hunter, something that you're most likely traveling to maybe a few hours and you're probably eating, anywhere from $300 plus. And one thing I will mention is that volunteering is something that you should consider when it comes to going to one of those regional events. If nothing else, by volunteering, you get to kind of be up front and center and see, hey, what works and what doesn't work from people that are competing right in front of your eyes. It's going to be work, right? And you're going to spend a lot of the time just doing the tasks that you signed up to do, but there's going to be so much good stuff that you're going to be able to take in while you're looking at everyone else that's competing, seeing what they're running, seeing the people that are trying to compensate for their skill by running more gear, or seeing some stuff that absolutely just kills it, and you see some common denominators. So a perk that comes with volunteering is also that oftentimes you get a future event or an attendance for free. I know for the tactical games, I did sign up as a volunteer, and that's going to allow me to be able to compete in a regional match sometime in the next year at no cost of my own. And so that is something that I am now able to save several $100s and be able to work towards and have a good regimen to train to, and have some sort of internal motivation of a goal in mind. So please keep in mind volunteering. I'm not necessarily able to know which ones you're able to get a free attendance, and you should have an open heart when it comes to volunteering and do it for the sake of bettering the event and not just getting something out of it for yourself, but there's certainly a trade-off there. And so to cap off this training segment, there's going to be so much that you learn leading into the competition that you're going to be better training for, but part of the value is the competition is what breaks down while you're there. I think for myself and my training partner, and he actually gave me this feedback, which is why I'm adding it in this way, is I think we learned maybe 40% going through just open source YouTube content, good tips from Sniper's Hide, getting out and training going into the competition. But by attending and everything that we have taken away on the other side of it, there's probably a good 60% or more of just continued focus and refinement in a way that we wouldn't have been able to do without actually attending it. And so the essence of competition is that you're putting yourself in scenarios that you're not setting up for yourself. You're kind of outsourcing that setup process, the fatigue process, the shaking down it process. And so if you're really not putting yourself in these unknown scenarios where you're testing yourself, then are you just doing this to collect items, or are you trying to better yourself with these useful tools and be able to get better no matter the season, even if it's just, hey, things are tough, but I still want to get after what I can. It's better than being miserable and having stuff sit in the closet. If you want my opinion, I tend to believe focusing on competitions that emphasize the need to train for precision and use your CCW would be the most wise ways of spending your precious time and money. By precision, I don't necessarily mean you need to own a long-range bolt-action rifle or a DMR. I mean shooting small groups at small targets. You can do this with a standard AR-15. If it's got an LPVO on it, even better. By focusing on precision, it means you're less likely to unnecessarily blow rounds downrange and waste your ammo. You can get a tremendous amount of precision training done at 100 meters. Buy a couple packs of those 1-inch or 3-inch Birchwood Casey targets for $20 and you're going to be set for 6 months. The craft drill is a great choice, and recently Philip Vallejo released his Chaos drill, which looks similarly useful. Even for the tactical games, I noticed that they use smaller targets that you need to maximize accurate hits while you're fatigued. And it's less about burning it down as fast as possible. Being intentional with CCW training is valuable because it's immediately transferable to the firearm you're most likely to use. Handgun ammo is also cheaper, so you're more likely to be able to budget for that. And if you're not isolated in your own broke situation, but we're actually in a more broad economic downturn, then actively training with your CCW might be the wisest thing you can actually do. I've largely addressed this in some other previous points, but I just wanted to specifically reiterate that you need to be truly thoughtful and wise with your training. You are literally wasting precious money if you're training inefficiently or carelessly. If you're hurting for money during this time, don't just shoot at trash. Develop a plan for how you want to train for a competition event you're preparing for. Look up curriculum, competition advice, or go to an elite competitor's social media account and see what they do on a daily basis. A crucial way to train for absolutely no money is to just consistently dry fire. It's almost a running joke during economic stability, but dry fire will be one of your best friends and an outlet that you will cherish when buying a single box of 9mm and when that's considered a serious purchase. The same logic applies with dry fire. Look up thoughtful ways to spend 20 or 30 minutes every other day or two. I'm not even going to tell you to do this every single day, since the odds are most of your time is going to be seriously dedicated to hustling for jobs and work. But really, we should all dry fire more, even now when times are good. It's just financially wise. This should be a quick point, but it's worth reiterating. If you're dead set on wanting to develop a skill in a new area or sign up for a competition where you're missing crucial pieces of equipment, then you're going to need to go back a few steps and sell off some stuff in order to fund the missing links. If you're dead set on wanting to attend a precision gas gun match, but you don't own a good tripod, it might mean you need to sell off a pair of those Cry Precision pants sitting in your closet, or that extra road bike that's collecting dust in your garage. This is my last point, and it doesn't directly tie into any of the other points. However, I think it might be the most important compared to all the others. During times when you're financially struggling, I would 100% recommend you prioritize consistent, strenuous physical activity in your schedule. I would prioritize this one above training and even dry fire. As many people have pointed out, if you're out of shape, you are in some ways a liability. There are so many wonderful benefits of prioritizing exercise. If you're broke or struggling, then you're likely under tremendous mental circumstances like stress and anxiety. Going to the gym or running for 4 miles is going to help you clear your head on a consistent basis. It might be one of the only things besides prayer that keeps you sane. Working out is also really cheap. People love to joke that it's a poor person's hobby because you're not paying for anything outside of the monthly membership. If you're training for the tactical games, then this is almost mandatory because you need to be in the best shape you can be to perform at your personal best. Rucking and hiking is awesome too because it's a great way to think or connect with the Lord. Hiking will take you to some spots with some staggering views too. There's also a very transferable element to preparedness here, as wearing a heavy pack is a baseline standard and a capability that you just need to accept. Tying off the fitness conversation, let's think about a scenario where you're struggling with both your finances and with your health and wellness. If you actually play this out, there's way more opportunities for you to rapidly get yourself out of a bad financial position, let's say with a new job opportunity or with a startup that finally starts to get headwind. But on the fitness side, there is no I wake up the next morning scenario and I'm in a completely different position. This is going to be something that requires consistent work no matter the stage of financial health that you're in. So it's a great equalizer even when it means you don't have a lot of financial resources, which is a wonderful thing. So in this case, I guess I would encourage you to do what you can in this area because it's going to actually be an investment that pays so well in the 15, 20, 30 plus years down the line where your finances may come and go multiple times during that window. I don't have a verse for the video today, but I do want to just share something brief, and it's just an overall encouragement to anybody that may be dealing with a frustrating scenario, some form of suffering, to the point where you feel like you can't even bring it to God, right? I think there's an idea that for me, being a Christian means that I need to praise God in every moment and every season, even if it feels like I'm getting dunked on in life. And the Psalms are an amazing testimony of men and individuals that are open in their screams to the Lord, pleading with Him, but also screaming at Him and saying, let me turn from you so I could finally get some rest, right? These are some very honest conversations, and just because you are keeping it up here also doesn't mean that the Lord doesn't already know it or is aware of it. So I think meeting God where you're at and trusting that He can handle whatever it is that you're feeling, especially in those broken moments. And it's not just, hallelujah, God, I know iron sharpens iron, and I know that I'm big enough for whatever battle that you've given me. You're probably not big enough on your own. That's what Jesus had to die for, and that's what a relationship with Him looks like, is because you are not strong enough on your own.